England, a land of kings and queens, a kingdom forged over centuries, yet for much of its history the throne was a seat reserved for men. That changed forever with Mary I, the first woman to rule England in her own right. No mere consort, no regent holding power in the shadows, Mary shattered centuries of tradition. She became a queen regnant, a queen in her own name. Mary's reign was brief, lasting only 5 turbulent years, but her impact on England was profound, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's religious and political landscape. To understand Mary, we must first journey back to her tumultuous childhood, a childhood marked by both privilege and peril. For Mary was not born expecting to be queen. She was, however, born a princess, the daughter of King Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. It was a birth met with great celebration, for Mary was the long-awaited heir, the princess who would one day rule England, or so it seemed. Mary's early years were a mix of sunshine and storm clouds. Born into the grandeur of the Tudor dynasty, her life was a tapestry woven with moments of joy and underlying tension. She was a bright and precocious child, adored by her parents. King Henry VIII and Queen Catherine of Aragon doted on their daughter, seeing in her the promise of a bright future. Tutors marveled at her intellect, quickly mastering languages and courtly graces. Mary was not just a student, she was a prodigy, absorbing knowledge with an insatiable curiosity. She was, by all accounts, a princess worthy of her lineage. Her poise and grace were evident even at a young age, making her a beloved figure in the court. Yet even in these early years, shadows loomed. The corridors of the castle, though grand, were filled with whispers of uncertainty and the ever-present pressure of royal expectations. Henry VIII, a man of immense appetites and even greater ambition, yearned for a son, an heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. His desire for a male successor was a constant undercurrent in the royal household. When Catherine failed to produce a male heir, Henry's affections began to wander. The Queen's inability to give him a son became a source of tension and sorrow, casting a shadow over their once happy marriage. The court, a place of whispers and intrigue, watched with bated breath as the King's eye fell upon Anne Boleyn, a lady-in-waiting of sharp wit and even sharper ambition. Anne's presence at court was like a spark in a tinderbox, igniting gossip and speculation. For Mary, Anne's presence signalled a dangerous shift in the winds of fortune. The young princess, though still a child, could sense the brewing storm that threatened her mother's position and her own future. Anne was ambitious, not just for herself, but for her future children. She envisioned a future where her offspring would sit on the throne, a vision that required the displacement of Mary and her mother, and she had caught the eye of the king. Henry's infatuation with Anne was no fleeting fancy. It was a consuming passion that would drive him to drastic measures. The stage was set for a drama that would tear England apart and leave young Mary caught in the crossfire. The once bright future of the princess was now overshadowed by the tumultuous events that would reshape the kingdom and her destiny. Henry VIII, desperate for a male heir and besotted with Anne Boleyn, embarked on a course of action that would shatter the religious unity of Christendom. His desire for a son to secure the Tudor dynasty was so intense that it led him to make decisions that would forever alter the course of English history. He sought an annulment from Catherine of Aragon, claiming that their marriage was invalid in the eyes of God. The Pope, however, refused. This refusal was not just a simple denial, it was a significant political and religious statement. The Pope's decision was influenced by Catherine's powerful connections, particularly her nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Catherine, a devout Catholic and aunt to the powerful Holy Roman Emperor, would not be so easily cast aside. Her steadfastness and refusal to accept the annulment were rooted in her deep religious convictions and her royal lineage. She believed that her marriage was sacred and legitimate, and she was determined to uphold her honor and that of her daughter Mary. Henry, never one to be thwarted, took a drastic step. His determination to marry Anne Boleyn and secure a male heir led him to challenge the very foundation of the Catholic Church's authority in England. He broke with the Roman Catholic Church, declared himself supreme head of the Church of England, and granted himself the annulment. This bold move not only allowed him to marry Anne Boleyn, but also marked the beginning of the English Reformation, a period of profound religious and political upheaval. Catherine was banished from court, stripped of her title, and her marriage to Henry declared null and void. She was sent to live in increasingly remote and uncomfortable conditions, separated from her daughter and stripped of her dignity. This act had devastating consequences for Mary. The young princess, who had been the apple of her father's eye, found herself in a precarious and humiliating position. Overnight, she went from being a cherished princess to an illegitimate outcast. Her status was not just a personal blow, but a public declaration of her reduced standing in the eyes of the court and the country. Removed from the line of succession, she was declared a bastard and separated from her beloved mother. This separation was particularly cruel, as Mary was deeply attached to Catherine, who had been her primary source of comfort and support. The trauma of this period would leave a lasting scar on Mary's soul. The emotional and psychological impact of being declared illegitimate and losing her mother was profound. It shaped her character and her future actions as she grew older. It would also forge within her a steely resolve to reclaim her birthright and restore England to the Catholic faith. Mary's determination to right the wrongs done to her and her mother became a driving force in her life, influencing her decisions and her reign as Queen of England. When Mary eventually ascended to the throne, she worked tirelessly to restore Catholicism in England. Her reign, though controversial and marked by religious persecution, was a testament to her unwavering commitment to her faith and her mother's legacy. The events of her early life had indelibly shaped her, leaving a legacy that would be remembered for generations. Section 4. The Crown Restored. The years that followed were a time of great upheaval and uncertainty. Anne Boleyn, triumphant, became queen and bore Henry VIII a daughter, the future Queen Elizabeth I. But Anne's time in the sun was short-lived. She failed to produce a male heir and fell from Henry's grace, eventually meeting her end on the executioner's block. Henry married 4 more times, seeking both love and a male heir. His only son, the frail Edward VI, eventually inherited the throne upon his father's death. Edward, a devout Protestant, continued his father's religious reforms, further alienating Mary, who remained a steadfast Catholic. Edward's reign was brief. He died at the age of 15, leaving no clear heir. England, still reeling from the religious turmoil of Henry VIII's reign, was plunged into a succession crisis. It was a crisis that Mary, despite years of being sidelined and underestimated, was ready to meet head-on. Section 5. England returns to Rome. Edward VI's death set the stage for a power struggle. The young king, who had been a staunch Protestant, left behind a kingdom fraught with religious tension and political uncertainty. His untimely demise at the age of 15 created a vacuum that many were eager to fill. The Protestant faction, fearful of Mary's Catholicism and her potential to undo their reforms, threw their support behind Lady Jane Grey, a distant relative of the king. Jane was seen as a more palatable option for those who had benefited from the Protestant Reformation and feared a return to Catholic rule. Jane, a pawn in their Game of Thrones, was proclaimed queen. Her ascension was orchestrated by powerful nobles who sought to maintain their influence and protect their interests. However, Jane's reign was short-lived and fraught with challenges, but Mary was not so easily denied her birthright. With a fierce determination and a strong sense of legitimacy, she began to gather support. Her claim to the throne was not just a matter of personal ambition, it was a fight for her family's legacy and the future of England. She rallied her supporters, appealing to the deep well of loyalty that still existed for the Tudor dynasty. Her cause was bolstered by those who remembered the stability and prosperity of her father's reign and hoped for a return to those days. The people of England, weary of turmoil and eager for stability, flocked to her banner. They saw in Mary a chance to restore order and bring an end to the uncertainty that had plagued the kingdom since Edward's death. The coup d'etat faltered. Jane Grey was deposed after a mere 9 days on the throne, and Mary Tudor, the daughter of Henry VIII, was finally crowned Queen of England. Her coronation was a moment of triumph, not just for Mary, but for all those who had supported her claim. Her ascension marked a turning point in English history. It was a moment that signaled the end of one era and the beginning of another, as Mary sought to steer the country back to its Catholic roots. For the first time, a woman held the reins of power in her own right. Mary's reign was groundbreaking, not just because of her gender, but because of the significant changes she sought to implement. Mary, Devout and determined, was committed to steering England back to the Catholic faith. Her religious convictions were deeply personal, shaped by her mother, Catherine of Aragon, and her own experiences of persecution under her father's and brother's Protestant regimes. She would become known as Bloody Mary for her harsh persecution of Protestants. Her efforts to restore Catholicism were marked by a series of brutal executions, which left a dark stain on her legacy. But her story is far more complex than this simple label suggests. Mary was a queen who faced immense challenges and made difficult decisions in a time of great upheaval. Her reign was a struggle to reconcile her personal beliefs with the political realities of her time. She was a queen who inherited a kingdom divided, a queen who ruled in an age of religious fanaticism, a queen who would leave a lasting legacy on the throne of England. Her efforts to restore Catholicism, though ultimately unsuccessful, set the stage for the religious conflicts that would continue to shape England for generations to come. Mary's reign, though brief, was a pivotal chapter in the story of England, one that continues to be studied and debated by historians to this day.